let's start at the top, I guess. I know you're from Miami, but what was it like growing up there? I know you had somewhat of like a religious background, but like what was your childhood like, and how did that go?
Yeah, I grew up in Miami. I was the first daughter born to my parents. They were kids of immigrants. My
Mm,
grandparents, both sets of grandparents came over from Cuba
mm,
um, in the like late 50s, 60s.
right.
And then my dad was born in Miami, and my mom was born in Cuba. And I grew up in a Catholic community. I went to private Catholic school my whole life. I
Mm,
went to a co-ed one from pre-K or from kindergarten until 6th grade, and then 7th grade until I left school when I was 16
mm.
was a private all-girl Catholic preparatory school.
Wow. Is that as intense as it sounds?
Yes, it is. It is. I was also like very academic and cerebral. I was very into
Mm-hmm.
school, and my mom is a teacher, so she was very adamant about academia and did sports and did all kinds of stuff. And so
For you, I guess, like, have you always stayed super religious, or how has that evolved?
I completely agree with you. I feel like when I went to the all girls school, like when I went in 7th grade, that was, I think, when my religious bubble got popped,
Mm.
because it was like so indoctrinating where I went as a kid, and then I didn't even question God. Like God was
Just
obvious
like,
to
yeah,
me.
of course,
Yeah,
yeah.
God was obvious to me, and I didn't question anything. And
Right.
then when I went to 7th grade, I made friends who popped bubbles for me, and I started learning and connecting with my own sexuality in a way that I never had. And it wasn't because of the school in any way. It was just because of the girls that I met, and the experiences that I was having in high school and middle school overall. It wasn't even just the school in general. It was the
Yeah.
community of schools that we all would hang out with. There's a lot of wealthy kids who had a lot of access and who had a lot of free time and non-vigilance. So there was a lot of just experimenting and conversation and things happening, at a really
Yeah.
young age. And so I got exposed to a lot of that. And even though I wasn't really a part of that world, I was there to study. I was on academic scholarship and financial aid. Like I really wanted to,
Mm.
my goal in my whole life was like, I'm going to get a scholarship to college, and then I'm going to go study and
Yeah.
be a lawyer or a doctor or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like kind of like that mentality that you have.
Yeah.
Music was always literally such a back burner concept in my reality up until I auditioned for X Factor. So, and that was when I was 16. So it wasn't like I was planning or plotting my life from that standpoint.
Yeah.
I was really more so on the trajectory of like school is super important and I got to get into college. So I was very hyper performative and very independent. My mom really raised me to be independent as fuck. Also, just very, like on
Mm-hmm.
my P's and
Mm-hmm.
Q's and always nervous about making sure that I was good enough?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that definitely, from the little that I already know about your story, just like the having parents who are immigrants, being the firstborn, it's like there's obviously just pressure that comes with that experience in general. That it's like you better
Yeah,
fucking like figure this shit out, or like make us proud, or like,
yeah. I feel like each generation of immigrants, it's like the further you get into the generations, it's like, all right, how are you going to be even better than we were, and even how are you going to keep building this legacy of migration?
yeah, yeah,
Came here for a better life, supposedly. So
yeah,
I'm gonna make sure you get a better life. And then what does that even mean in the context of life, right? Yeah. I mean, I really think it draws back to like capitalist ideals. I feel like capitalism permeates like all of our emotional structures. And like you said, in like a
totally.
family, when I think of what I was told continuing to get better means, it is very material based, or wealth based, like how much more money you have, how much more intergenerational wealth you can have access to, which I didn't come from at all.
Mm-hmm.
So that is what's associated. But what I've learned on my journey really is like on my healing journey and connecting with myself and figuring out my traumas and insecurities and triggers and stuff
Mm-hmm.
is that when I show up as a parent, I really just I want to show up in such an authentic way that allows my kids to feel safe to be themselves.
Mm.
And like talking about growing up in religious environments, like I feel like there was such a rigidity to how we were allowed to express ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
And I felt a huge rigidity around my self-expression pretty much my whole life until I was all of a sudden exposed to life at 16
Yeah.
outside of the world that I had grown up in.
Yeah.
And it was shocking to have that much possibility and so much of a wide range of how I could express myself that it like kind of stunned me into not really taking the time to look for myself and starting to bury a lot of my emotions. So I feel like through the healing that I've done, I really just want to show up in like a more healed way for my kids. I want to be able to show up in a way, if I have kids, I just want to be able to show up in a way that allows them to feel like they can be who they are, like who they really are, and they can like share that journey with me in that process. Because a lot of us, we think we know who we are when we're 12 or 9 or whatever, but then we grow up and we're like 10,000 different people before we're 26, like
Yeah.
yeah, I also feel like it's consciousness, right? It's awareness or unawareness of your experience. It's like you can walk through life thinking that everything's just randomly happening to you, or
Yeah.
you can approach life in such a way where you realize the patterns, ways that you show up, and how those things affect others, or how it affects your relationships, or even your relationship with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like living life consciously or unconsciously. It's like you can feel disconnected from yourself to the point where you think that everything is random, or you really
Yeah.
tap into like even back to that religious note of like whether I'm religious or not now. Like I definitely believe in a higher power, and I definitely believe that intention and thought and energy are real, very real. And
Mhm.
I believe that when you combine those things, energy, intention, and thought, and you move with those things in mind, like consciously, you're able to create your life, and you're able to, I wouldn't say undo because the trauma is present, but you're able to realize how your trauma affects you to the point where you can start integrating tools to make sure it doesn't anymore. So that you can
Mhm.
have healthier relationships with yourself and with others. That's what living a conscious life means to me. It is mental health. Like mental health and consciousness is kind of the same thing because it's just taking into account what's going on inside of you and how your emotions are affecting you and how all of that plays into the way that you interact with the world around you. Yeah, or of making it accessible, because I
Yeah.
feel like therapy and the kinds of tools that allow you to get to a point where you're introspective enough to start healing, those things are kind of inaccessible, especially in like Latinx communities and, BIPOC communities. It's really, it's not something that's talked about as often. And it's not something that is really, again, the accessibility of it. Like therapists cost a lot of money. And if your insurance doesn't cover the therapist that you connected with, then you don't, because even that umbrella of like insurance companies deciding who you should be connecting with is like, we make it really inaccessible for people to heal. And so, when that's the case, there are going to be a lot of people, unfortunately, who don't even realize the value of being introspective. And also, in order to like keep up with life, that's the way it's happening right now. It's hard to want to think about what's causing you to feel a type of way because,
Mhm.
even if a lot of your triggers do come from your childhood, I don't think we talk enough about how many of us are extremely triggered by capitalism and the state
Mhm.
of the world in front of us and the way that the government chooses to handle things and the ways in which we're being manipulated and exploited as individuals, as citizens, as people on this planet. The fact that our freaking planet isn't even being taken care of, like none of us are going to be okay if there's no clean water. Like even those kinds of simple things that like indigenous folks have been talking about for years, like that has a huge effect on the indigenous community, like having to continuously be like, hey guys, like we're gonna all die and we're the first to be affected if you guys don't get your shit together, if we don't all get our shit together, and then us be dismissive of those conversations, the people in power and with the ability to fix those things just be indifferent to those conversations for profit. That's disheartening and traumatizing. And that's affecting all of us really, really deeply in a way that I don't think any of us talk about. I've found myself in those moments every time when I'm going through the most like, why the fuck is this happening? Like, what?
Mhm.
I always
Mhm.
I usually, because I like to write, writing helps me process and
Yeah.
make sense of what what this place is. So every time that I'm in those darker places and those days where you feel a little more numb, when I write, I'm able to make sense of it, and I'm able to. It's like little tools like that that help me kind of cope and process, so that I'm not stuck in those days. You know?
Yeah. Was that something like from when you were a kid that like you started doing as a tool, like oh when music was your passion? Like how did you like adopt that as a coping mechanism and know like when you were conscious of your mental health, like, oh, this is like actually kind of helping me and like it makes me feel better.
Yeah, I actually remember this exact moment because it was like an aha moment for me. I was like
Yeah.
7 years old,
Wow.
and I was anxious about school or something, and I was sleeping, and I woke up from my sleep, and I was like, I don't know what to do with this feeling. Like, I don't know where to put what I'm feeling, you
Mm.
know? And so I grabbed a green notebook that I still have, and I wrote my feelings out. I wrote a poem about not being able to sleep. And I like wrote it out. And when I was done, I was like, oh my God, the feeling is out of my body. Like I basically like my child mind being like, oh
Yeah.
my God, I expressed myself, and I don't have to hold on to this feeling. Like when I put a pen to a paper, I'm able to transfer this feeling onto this sheet, and I'm able to not hold it anymore,
Yeah.
is what I realized. And so I started doing that. Anytime that I would feel really angsty or really upset about something, I would go and write it out. Or like anytime I was like really sad or really happy, even like really, really excited about something, I would write it out. And like I just kind of formed a habit of doing that. And it's not consistent to the point of like journal keeping that I probably wish it was, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are really good about waking up every morning and doing their journal entry and having, perfect coping mechanisms. Like
Yeah.
for me, like my connection with writing is a little chaotic sometimes
Yeah.
because it's when I'm in my real dark places that I am the most expressive and explicit in my writing. Does that make sense? I really did. I was like, wow, because I'm a very emotional person. I'm a Cancer, Sun, Scorpio moon, like very water sign energy,
Mm-hmm.
very emotive, very introspective and deep, like I and I know that that's cringe nowadays, but it is who I am,
Yeah, you gotta
So
own it. Yeah, fuck it.
I gotta own that shit.
Yeah.
So me owning that shit is writing it and putting it into music and making sense of it that way. Cause I write and then I write songs. You know what I mean? There's
Mm.
there's writing and then there's writing songs. Writing songs is more of like a concise process because you have to convey the emotion in a refrain, and you have to kind of follow a specific concept,
Yeah,
if
yeah. There's some sandbox, yeah.
so that's more succinct. But when I write freehand and I'm just like, let me just write out my feelings, that shit'll be like 7 pages long,
Yeah.
9 pages, 10 pages of me, of what, if you read it, it's like, damn, this is kind of poetic, but like it's me making sense of myself,
Yeah. Will you try and like translate the freehand like into the song and like kind of refine it, or is it like two separate like mindsets of what you're trying to say?
It depends on what I'm trying to say. Sometimes I need to write a song about it because whatever I'm writing about needs I need to sing it. I need to like emote it out of me. And then other times, because that's another key of it for me, is like my voice is a really powerful tool in helping me emote and get things out of my body. Like other times when I feel really, really anxious, I'll listen to really loud music and I'll dance, like just dance my face, like move my whole body, like, and just not even think twice about what it looks like, but
Like no
just
one's
move
watching. Yeah.
literally like no one's watching, which is very rare for me. So yeah, and that shit, it literally will move things out of me physically.
Hmm.
So yeah, sometimes I need to sing it to get it out of my body, and then other times the pen is enough.
Yeah. What's it been like creatively for you going from like, you do the audition when you're a kid, you join the group, then you do like your solo stuff. How have you been able to like find or maintain or like adapt your sort of creative process?
Well, I didn't have a structured creative process before at all. Like when I was younger, like I would just create whenever I felt like creating. I would just, if I felt like,
Just like natural, yeah.
Yeah, it was so natural to me. I never thought twice about it. Like, I'd hear a song and I'd be like, oh, I want to make a dance to this song. And I'd go in my room for 3 days and come up with a whole choreography and teach my brother and sister. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't think twice about it when I was younger. I didn't write a lot of songs though. Like, I wrote like 2 or 3 songs when I got my heart broken or some shit. But I wasn't like get dedicated to my craft of songwriting in any kind of way beforehand.
Yeah.
So was journaling and writing poems and stuff. And then when I was in the group, I didn't get to write at all. Like, I didn't get to explore myself creatively or as a songwriter in any kind of capacity besides judgment. And not by the girls, but just like the situation that we were in, you know?
Yeah, just like, this is what you got to do, whatever. It's like not as like free. Yeah, exactly.
But when I left the group, I really tapped in for the first time. And my very first time tapping in was when I collaborated with Marion Hill.
Mm-hmm.
They let me write my verse. And I was like, oh my God, they let me write my verse. Like, what am I going to write? You know? And I was so excited about it. And I remember being in my hotel room and just listening to the track over and over and over again. And like, how am I going to approach this? Like, how am I going to say my perspective? Because that's what I love when I write verses for features and stuff. I love getting into a concept. Like, if there's a concept already created, like, I love writing from my perspective for a concept.
Yeah. What's the idea? Yeah.
Right. So I did that. And that process, that moment freed me in so many ways. Because when I played it for him, for Jeremy, who's the producer, he was like, damn, like, this is great. Like, you're a great writer.
Yeah.
And then up to that point, I had never been told that, you know, writing was something that I had for me, you know, I never really shared it with anyone except my best friend. We would send each other poems sometimes.
And he like totally like affirmed you in that moment.
Super affirmed me as a songwriter. And I was like, holy shit, maybe I can write too, you know, like maybe I really can do this. So that opened up the floodgates because then I started writing songs from there. And yeah, I've just been writing songs for the past like 4 years here and there. I have like 30 songs. Absolutely. I think, yeah, it's definitely a balance for me. Sometimes it comes so spontaneously. Some of my best shit is spontaneous.
Yeah.
I write it in like 30 minutes and it's out of my body.
Yeah.
Well, it was wild because as a 15-year-old, I could never have told myself what I have been through doing this. I don't think anyone can prepare you for fame or stardom or public eye scrutiny.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a teenager, like when you're a kid. You know, at that age, I feel like I was really just like, what do I want to do with my life? You know, like what actually makes me happy? What's going to keep me happy? And my dad was is a musician as well. And
nice.
He and I and my whole family, we used to watch like American Idol. And my grandma had told me, like, she was like, one day you're going to sing for Simon Cowell. He's going to love you. And and I was like, okay, abuela, you know what I mean? Like, all right.
Yeah.
And she passed away. And when she passed away, it was like a feeling I had in my pit of my stomach that was like, I have to try, like, just for her, like to, like, if she was alive, like, she would have been rooting for me, like, the whole entire time. But I don't know. I had like a feeling that I needed to just try. And I didn't expect shit, to be honest. My dad literally told me this verbatim. He's like, I'm going to take you to this shit. I'm going to take you to this audition so you can see how hard it is. So you can learn your lesson now about how hard it is.
So you could never ask for this again, and then we're going home right after.
Industry, right? And I was like, okay, it's okay. I'm going to be that 1 in a million. I'm not 1 in a million, you know? Yeah. It's just the mentality I had. I was like, I am that bitch. I am the one that's going to go through. Because it wasn't, the audition wasn't live in front of the judges the first time, you know? That was like the 4th round of the audition process. Like the beginning rounds of it was like, I was
a little bit more like more chill. Yeah.
No, I went to a cattle call audition with 10,000 people in Greensboro, North Carolina at a stadium.
Holy shit.
And yeah. And then that dwindled down to the next day. Like there was like 40 booths the first day that I was there. There was like 16 the second day that I was just there. Because I got through the first round.
Yeah.
And then I went to the second round. It was a lot less people. And they split us up by the categories because it was X Factor.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got through that round of auditions as well. And then you go to the back and you fill out all this fucking paperwork, sign your whole life away, whatever the fuck, questionnaires thing. And then you audition for the producers, like just them and a camera. And you talk to them and you do that whole thing. And then they're like, oh, we'll call you if you get it. And if you don't get it, you won't get a call. And it's like, okay,
Thank you so much. Yeah.
all right, bye. I'll see you later, maybe. And then I I got the call during the summer. I didn't think I was going to get the call because they waited a really long time to call me. Like live shows were in July, and it was June when I got the call, like around my birthday. It was August was live shows, excuse me. July was boot camp. So then I got the call, and that's when I went and auditioned live for the judges. And I had never been on a stage like that before in my life. I had never sang in front of a crowd that big in my whole life. When you walk out into the auditorium, it's like you don't have in-ears, which is something I've learned now. So everything that you're singing is echoing back to you. So you can't really even hear what's happening.
Yeah.
It was such an experience.
Were you like freaking out, like scared, or just like whatever, like nothing's gonna happen? Like
I was so confident. I can't even express to you. I have been doing a lot of work in my, this decade later of my life.
Yeah.
Not to get back to the girl that I was, but to re-empower the girl that I was in terms of how driven she was to manifest her reality. Like, and granted, I'm still that way. I am that girl. I rehabilitated that girl.
She's still there. Yeah. It's just all of like all the inner child stuff. Yeah.
She took a lot of healing though, because of the dramatic shift in my life that happened after that audition.
Yeah.
Because then it airs, and then all of a sudden random strangers online are hitting me up like, I love you and you're such a talented person and I'm watching your every move. And then you see these follower counts go up and more people start paying attention to you and people start treating you differently in your family, even in your family, in your friend circles.
Like, what's going on? Yeah.
People switch up. People's expectations of you all of a sudden shift into how present you need to be in their lives so that they can have an association with you. And that was really traumatizing for me because I'm a very genuine person and I value connection a lot. And so to have a bunch of people telling me like the way that I needed to show up for them, even though we had never had a relationship, and like they put zero effort into like creating a relationship with me. It was like very obvious that they were just using me. Like it was really weird for me at that age because I was such a people pleaser at that time in my life, and I wanted everyone to be happy and to love me and I wanted to make, the world happy, and I wanted people to perceive me as this kind, person. And that's all fun and dandy and shit, but like people are going to always perceive you from their own perspective. And that's something that I learned the hard way when the whole world started watching me,
Yeah. Did you realize like at that time in your like late teens and stuff, how toxic it was? Or were you just like riding the high of like, I made it and like, this is all just part of the game and like, I'm so happy, but like not really.
No. I was depressed. I was like, what the fuck did I sign up for? Like, what is this? Because like you said, it happened overnight. It wasn't like I tried to do this for years and I was steadily building a fan base. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like putting in work and yeah.
That work. I feel like if I would have done that organically, I might have had a completely different, I might have never pursued music, to be honest, because of the amount of heartache and rejection and like just complete dissection of character and self and artistry that you go through. Yeah. Like when you're trying to navigate this music industry. Like I don't think I would have had at that time in my life, I don't think I would have had the skin thick enough to do that. I gained that thick skin through going through it because I had to go through it because I was on a train that I couldn't get off. Because not only was it just me, it wasn't just my artistry that I was showing up for. I was part of a group. So I was part of an entity that was bigger than me. Yeah. And that was invested in very deeply, So I always, and because of that people pleaser in me, I really didn't feel like I had a choice. I was just like, this is what I chose. This is where I am. And there was no empathy for how I was feeling either, because everyone around me was like, but you're famous and people care about you and you get to travel and you're making money. You have more money in your bank account than I'm ever going to see in my fucking life. Like, hey, you're lit. Like, why are you mad? Why are you sad? And I was depressed because I had no connection. I didn't feel connected to myself. I didn't feel connected to the people around me. I didn't feel connected to even my friends and family because I wasn't able to be around them and they were experiencing life and there were moments of life happening. I'm very family oriented and I'm very like homebody, love energy. You know what I'm saying? So having to be on tour all the time and only being home maximum 2 weeks out of the year was really traumatizing for me, you know? Like not getting those check-ins, being in all these really tumultuous relationships to try to hold on to like stability that wasn't real, you know? Like I was going through a lot mentally and emotionally during that time of my life. And that's not to say that I wish that I would have been more present for how amazing some of the things that I did was, but I wasn't because my mental health was so severely struggling and I had no tools for it. Like I had no therapist, nobody around me that felt safe enough to communicate the complexity of what I was feeling. Because again, not a lot of people have empathy for artists or famous people, celebrities, quote unquote, you know? There's not a lot of empathy for how deep people are allowed to go on their character and completely just talking crazy shit about people on the internet. You don't even know, you know what I mean? Like nobody can prepare you for that mob mentality or when those moments come up. And I already had anxiety before I started this stuff. So my anxiety just got exacerbated because I mean, for me, I'm a very private person. So if I'm walking somewhere, this is when it first started out for me. Like when I would walk somewhere and someone would recognize me and talk to me and treat me and touch me like they knew me, that made me extremely uncomfortable. Like when I first started doing this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then there's no empathy for that because people are like, well, you shouldn't be a bitch. This is a person who's a fan of you. Like you shouldn't be so standoffish or rude around this person. You know, they support you. And that concept didn't click for me because I was like, this is a stranger who's telling me they love me and they don't know me. Like, what are you talking about? That flip happening so fast and you not getting used to that happening is traumatizing. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, people don't like to be run up on. Like, nobody likes to be run up on and touched without consent and a photo taken of them without their consent and slathered all over the internet. Like, you know, that stuff is very invasive.
Yeah, you became like dehumanized.
Yeah, extremely dehumanized. It's very dehumanizing. But again, like as I grew and as I, you know, became more comfortable with the idea that this is my life's purpose and this is my call and this is where I am and this is where I do what I love as well. Once all of that started sinking in for me and once I started growing and experiencing more of it too, I was able to just rationalize in my mind, like, yes, these people are strangers, but these people are invested in you and in your career and in the art that you're putting out. Cause like when I was in fifth, I was like, what the fuck are you guys so obsessed with me for? Like, we don't even make shit that's that deep. You know what I mean? Like, how are you connecting with me so deep when you don't even know, literally don't know me? I've never shown you me, you know? Now I'm able to accept it more because I'm like, oh wow, you're connecting with my art. You're connecting with my heart, really. Like when I started talking more about my, you know, reality and just like, you know, being more vocal in general, like more people started connecting with me. I'm able to realize the type of person that walks up to, like, sometimes people will walk up to me and they'll just be like, oh my God, are you that famous bitch? Like, can I have a picture with you? And I'm like, ew, you know, like this, ew, I hate that. But then there's other people who will see me and be like, oh my God, are you Lauren? Like, that's crazy. I listen to your music. Like, I love what you make. Like, I love the way that you think, or, you know, you've helped me accept myself in so many different kinds of ways. Like, that's a different kind of connection and like way to connect. So I'm more aware now. And then I'm also able to have boundaries if I feel like it, you know, because before I felt like, well, if I'm not nice to everybody, then people are going to talk shit about me on the internet. And then I was like, okay, yeah, but people need to respect you as a human being. Yeah. Like, and if people are upset that you're asking for respect, like, fuck them.
And people are going to talk shit no matter what.
Literally, people will talk shit no matter what. Yeah. You could be an angel, an actual, because I'm a good girl, man. Like
Like,
I don't do a lot of
you
wild
could be an
shit.
angel, like you could be like me. Like I'm an angel. Yeah.
You be like me, you know what I mean? I'm kidding. I'm really not. No, I'm very much human. I'm very much human. But I swear to God, I don't be on no drama shit. I don't like to make people feel less than me. Like
Yeah.
I'm a very chill human being. So, if people are gonna say that I'm the opposite of who I am, that doesn't bother me as much anymore. It used to really bother me, bro, when people would say shit about me that didn't resonate with my character.
Yeah.
It would drive me insane. Like my body would react. Like I would feel sick to myself.
Yeah. On some shit that's fully out of your control, by the way.
Totally
Like,
out of my control. And
yeah.
I don't know this person. Like I don't this person who's saying these things, I've never met them in my life. And they're talking about my inner workings and my intentions and my character. Like we're besties. Like we met 10 years ago and they know me. Like I had to come. That was another huge healing point for me was like, fuck what people think. Who are you? How are you showing up in your real life?
Don't give them that power. Yeah.
Exactly. Because if you're showing up in your real life the way that you need to be showing up, that shit can't have an effect on you,
Yeah.
Because they don't know you personally.
Yeah. How were you able to like ask for help or like reach or like start to work on yourself once you're struggling with all this anxiety and things are picking up and what was the turning point for you of like actually starting to learn how to deal with some of these things that you had been struggling with for so long? Because I think it like oftentimes that's what's hardest for people is like, all right, I know I'm feeling this way. What's kind of the first step to like start on that path?
Well, for me, I think it was when I was around 19 or like 20, 19, 20.
Yeah.
And I was in like a real emotionally abusive relationship. And it could have been mutual, probably. Like I was not super, I definitely wasn't my best version of myself at that time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it really took a huge toll on my mental health. Like I was living my day to day life like in pure anxiety. And I was destroying myself. Like I was not showing up for myself and I was deteriorating emotionally and physically and no one around me cared or saw it or anything. And then I had this person who used to work for us who was a really kind spirit and who was able to
Mm.
like emotionally intelligent spirit, and she just saw that I was losing myself. Like she could tell that my light was like going out.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm gonna cry.
It's okay.
And she pulled me aside and was like, hey, like I have a friend who's like a psychic therapist,
Mm.
trauma expert, healer, and I really would love to set up a meeting with you guys because I think that it would be really good for you haven't been yourself lately, and you're kind of, I can tell there's something wrong with you, but I know
Wow.
you don't want to talk about it, because I didn't want to ever talk about anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I hated feeling weak, and I had to work. So we were always in front of a camera, talking to somebody, doing something on a show, like, you know what I mean? So we were always moving. So I didn't even have time to really process or feel because it was like,
Just like what's next? Go, go, go.
nobody
Yeah.
cares that you're crying, bitch. Show
Yeah.
up,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I went to that session, and that session really changed my life. I started working with her just here and there. And then I got into talk therapy for a little bit with a therapist, and talk therapy didn't work as well as I wanted it to. I think that I didn't find the right therapist, and I'm still not, I haven't 100% found the right therapist. But I started incorporating a lot more tools into my life, like meditation, and I'm not regular about it in any way. But when I start having my episodes, or like I'm feeling really disconnected, or like depression starts creeping back in, or something of that nature, I really have learned to. This is for me, just talking about myself. I've learned to check in with myself, and 99% of the time, I'm not taking care of myself. Like I'm not eating healthily. I'm not moving my body. I'm not you know, consuming content that is helpful. I'll be scrolling on the internet, or I'll be like, and all of that stuff feeds our mental health,
All
like
day.
what we
Yeah.
spend our time on all day, what we're looking at. If you're constantly in a state of comparison, there's no way to heal because you're always thinking that somebody else is ahead of you or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I started just implementing more of those kinds of tools in my life and started healing my inner child,
Mm.
which has been a process. I'm still in the process, you know, like I won't lie. I've been I've been in and out. I've been flow. I sometimes like I was really on my healing shit when in my like when I was 20, 21, and then I fell off and then I came back to it and
Yeah.
then I fell off and then I came back to it. And now I think right now at 26 I'm in the thick of it. I'm in the fucking thick of it. I'm out here like, wow, I really have to make hard decisions and changes.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to be consistent and disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only me that's going to hold myself accountable to it. Nobody else is going to show up and scream at me because I'm not taking care of myself.
Yep.
No one's going to show up and beat my ass because I didn't brush my teeth. No one's going to show, you know what I'm saying? Like none of that is going to happen. So reparenting, it's deep because you have to learn to have boundaries with yourself. Because like when I first started healing, I was like, I'm not limiting myself at all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to live life. I'm going to open up all of the floodgates. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then that doesn't work either, to just indulge yourself in everything.
That's not the baby steps. Yeah.
Getting everything you want. Like, no, you can't just get everything you want either. A lot of the things you want harm you.
I know you just got back off the tour, dropped the project last year. Like how are you thinking about this like solo career, like your future? Like what are your goals, or like what do you think about like when you think about the future for you?
I think for me, the pandemic really put shit into perspective for me in a lot of ways. Because as a musician, like our industry was really put on pause in a lot of ways. And it forced me to redefine what success looks like to me in this industry. And when I redefined it to myself, I realized that what success means to me is being able to pay my bills, doing what I love, and being able to help out my family and friends whenever they need to, and create moments for us to live happy, fruitful, joyful lives.
Mm.
So meeting my needs and meeting others' needs, I've got that. You know what I mean? I'm able to do that already from where I'm at.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to connect with people. If even just one person connects with my art and is able to tell me that it affected them to any kind of degree to where they felt more seen or more heard or more felt in this world, then I'm doing the fuck I'm supposed to do as an artist. And I feel like for a long time, because I was in such a like hyper curated pop group
Right.
that was everywhere all the time,
Yeah.
like I had such a narrow view of what success meant or is supposed to mean. And since shifting that, I've really been able to relax into the fact that I'm already successful and I'm already doing what I love. As long as I can make music that is representing my heart, I own my masters, I have my own label.
Mm.
I'm, like I have an incredible team around me now that I have, earned through trial and error and heartbreak.
Yeah.
And now it's just a matter of me continuing to show up for what I love. And if things come from that, then so be it. And if nothing else comes from it, I'm so happy and I'm so fulfilled doing what I'm doing, So yeah, I think I want to continue to make music. I want to continue to perform that live, and create, moments and just art that speaks to people. I want that to go as far as it possibly can and touch as many people as possible. That's my goal for it. And then later on in life, dude, I don't know. I kind of teeter with this idea of like, do I want a family or do I not want a family? Because I'm so motherly. Like I know I'm gonna be a great mom if I have a mom. And then so I feel like that'll be there one day for me. It's not right now, but hopefully that's in my future. I want like a little house on an island with a farm with some
Something
goats,
light, Yeah.
right? Nothing crazy.